Hey everyone, today I want to talk about the power of motivation and incentives and why it may be a driving force in why America and business as a whole, not just in America anymore, in China and other places, have created such amazing prosperity in businesses and stuff like that. So, without further ado, I want to reference a TED Talk video. It's called Dan Pink, the Puzzle of Motivation. I'll link it in the description, and you can search it on YouTube. It's a TED Talk. Basically, to sum it up, what it shows is how incentives, which is pretty much like stuff you give people to further increase their motivation to do something. So it could be money, it could be stock options, it could be numerous things. In this case, it was money. He showed a couple experiments. The first one without incentives, and then the second one with incentives. And what he found was that incentives, in this case, it was money. It was like $20 20 years ago, which was quite a lot, inflation adjusted. Uh, those incentives literally caused the people to do worse, which is very contradictory to what you would think. People did a lot worse. It took them a lot longer to figure out problems because of these incentives. And first off, that boggled my mind because um, I was listening to a talk by Charlie Munger called "The Psychology of Human Misjudgment," which was based off a very influential and very helpful book called "Influence: The Psychology of Persuasion," which is very famous. And it just talks about how humans are just they do a lot of things in error caused by psychological automatic subconscious responses that helped us in our primordial past, but in our current modern society uh, serve to hamper us or deter us from achieving great results. Anyhow, he mentions one thing in this article or in this talk, which was incentives, and he talks about how if you want to find out why things aren't working or why people are behaving a certain way and you can't figure it out, look to the incentives. Where is the money going? Another famous person, I think it was I, his first name's Jim Rogers, I believe. He was very rich as well. He said something similar. He said like, uh, if I could learn one thing when I was younger, it would be observe where the money is coming and going. And he was talking about how you can understand situations a lot better if you know who's getting paid the money, who's not getting paid the money, and start factoring money into the equation. Because then you start to understand why people are doing bizarre things, or why things are happening in a certain way, who's getting paid, who's the money going to, that sort of thing. And Charlie Munger, he said, well, um, he gave the example of Xerox. He found that when they upgraded to a, a better model of Xerox, for some reason, the salesmen started performing worse. Their productivity went down. They sold less, despite the model being better. And then he found out it was because of a detailed sort of loophole, I guess you could say, where the new model paid less in commissions for the salespeople. So it caused them to perform worse. And then he said that the Xerox people realized this, changed it so the commissions were better, and now the salesman did better. And he illustrated this as a power of incentives. So after I heard about this, I was confused when I was watching this TED Talk, and it wasn't the first time I watched it. So I already knew what was kind of going on, but I was still like, wow, it's kind of strange how that is, because this time I really sat there to try and understand it. So what does this all mean? Why does it all matter? Well, um, basically, what this experiment illustrates in this TED Talk is that, hey, you're giving these people incentives, which is what people want, and they're doing worse. Now, what the heck's going on? You're doing something, you're giving money out of your own pocket, lots of it, 20, 30 bucks per person, and you're doing worse. Well, you gotta stop doing that immediately, right? And what I found was, what he said was that the reason was because the task was complicated. It wasn't like a simple, singular, straightforward task. And he said through studies, he found that when it's a simple, singular, straightforward task that people understand and know how to accomplish, something very simple like put this block over there, then incentives obviously work very well. But in this case, the puzzle was not something so linear and straightforward. You had to think in your you have to look at your periphery, think outside of the box, and be creative in order to solve this. And because the incentives were placed there, it forced a sort of linear perspective, which caused them to be very rigid and in their box in their thinking, and try and, again, this is my my theory on why it happened. But he also said this was partially why he thinks it happened. It caused them to be very linearized in it and not really think outside of the box and be hastened in trying to solve the problem. And I think it makes a lot of sense. He said something similar. He said the lack of creativity and the lack of thinking outside of the box caused them to take longer because of the incentives placed. And so, what does this mean in terms of business? How can this help you if you're running a business, or maybe not even business, or just life in general? Well, first off, these incentives are not always a good thing. First off, you have to understand that they are a good thing. You're better off than a man that doesn't even understand incentives, in that if you can give people incentives to do stuff, you come across you come ahead of those people competitively. But more so than that, you have to understand that the world complicates things, and sometimes there's a reason for it because it is complicated. And in this case, it's very clear that when it's a complicated, creative problem, and the TED Talk does a great example. Dan Pink, he illustrates many examples of businesses in that competitive space, like Google, where these businesses pay employees to work on anything not related to their work for a certain percentage of their work time. And it's the most bizarre, ridiculous thing ever. And it works because, like, apparently 50% of Google's products, like Google Calendar, Google News, came out of that time where these employees were working on creative stuff not related to their work and getting paid for it. They were doing stuff out of their own enjoyment, and maybe not necessarily enjoyment, but not related to their work, something that they want to do themselves. And it just opens up doors to explore things. And in cases like this, you can't think singularly and be very linear. And this is one of those things that it's revolutionary to the way that people have been thinking about business and economy for the last 100, 200, forever. Because, all these years up until now, most, if not all, economists, as he mentioned in his TED Talk, have been saying stuff like, well, if you give people more incentives, then they will do better. And in this case, it's the opposite. The people who are not given incentives, but are told do whatever you want to do, and try and figure it out. He gave another example in business where basically a business, they were like, it was, I don't remember exact amount. I think it was like 50% of their work time was allowed to do something non-related to their work. And the objective, the condition was that they had to produce some kind of product overnight. These people perform better than people who were given incentives, and they created a lot of revolutionary, innovative products because the space that they're in is a very creative space. So it goes. I mean, I think it goes deeper in that fact. You don't want to overcomplicate things, but I think, long story short, if you're in a creative space or something that's non-singular, like it's not a paint, like you're not hiring a painter, it's very easy for them paint stuff. Then you don't want to just give them like incentives for objectives complete. Um, Adding incentives to that, it's a little more of a loaded question, but I think you kind of have to do something bizarre, as in be more creative, and let them give them incentives for things like being creative, producing innovative products, and you have to really think outside of the box because, as shown, if you think linearly, it proves to hamper innovative results. Finally, though, I think as far as business and enterprise and uh, free markets and stuff like that, um, it's interesting because with these sort of things, it sort of shows that like if you allow creativity and allow people to pursue what they want to do, things that they are most excited about, that they enjoy the most. And I don't think America or China or any other country has gotten to a point of, you know, even perfection in this, because even in America, there's plenty of people who are confined or convinced to not pursue what they want out of practicality, but um, they do they pursue professions and degrees because they think it will make them money, not because they're passionate about it. But I do think that there's plenty of people given a business, given the option of creating a business and starting an idea and stuff like that, especially in America now, but also in China, more so than in the past with communism and stuff like that. They are allowed to just, you know, disguise the limit. They're open to all sorts of creativity, which allow them, especially with the internet and websites, to create very innovative, amazing things rather than being forced to do something you don't like and being paid to do something you don't like. You get stuck in the very narrow-minded level of thinking, which can only produce very expected and oftentimes meager results. Like if you're in an economy where you're forced to be a math teacher or you're forced to be a factory worker and you're paid a certain amount based off how many times you pull the lever every day, then 99 times out of 100, if not 100 times out of 100, your upside is, you know, you're not going to be very creative. Your goal is just to pull that lever. Even if you have great ideas, you know, fantasy-like ideas, that's not going to take you anywhere because you're just pulling a lever every day. That's all the incentives. Now, I'm not attacking any specific, you know, perspectives or ideas on what economy is better, but it is a very interesting perspective that I think the best people will use and adapt to their own system and create a better system because it is very useful. And I think a great example, I just watched a documentary on Alibaba, which is a business. It's the largest IPO in U.S. history, some hundred billions of dollars. And the man who started this, he still has no idea how to program, but he organized a team of 17 friends, who worked together, and they created this product that they created this vision to IPO in a few years, and it took them 10 years, but they finally did it, and it's now one of the largest companies in the world. This man still has no idea how to program or code a website. He got his other people to do it. He's the CEO of this company, Jack Ma, and I am pretty darn sure if the internet was not invented, he would have probably just been an English teacher from wherever he was when he started this company till the day he died. And the internet changed everything for him. Um, And that is very, very shocking and kind of crazy and disturbing in a way when you think about it, because uh, I kind of see it in myself already, but it is somewhat based off your environment. Like, if you were placed in the right environment or the right opportunity comes about, like the internet and the ability to be business, to build a business and stuff like that, or whatever other reason, maybe you're the greatest player in the world, but no one taught you chess. The environment, based on the environment you're born into, you could end up being the richest, most successful person in the world, or just a meager worker or English teacher, and there's nothing wrong with that. So it kind of teaches you a bit of a lesson that there always is a factor of luck, and also that you shouldn't really gauge your self worth based on your accomplishments in life. Um, I mean, you should to a certain degree, but who's to say that you didn't have the potential of being the greatest CEO ever? Maybe it just, you weren't placed in that environment to do so. But again, you have to take that with a grain of salt, because there's so many things you can do with your environment. Um, right now, especially if you're born in the United States or European country or first world country. And there's so many opportunities and stuff like that that most people miss out on because they're not doing anything. They think they're just in a state of lethargy, blaming other things. When there's books you can read, resources you can take, things you can do, places you can go, um, gym, you can exercise at the gym, work out, read books, enlighten yourself, and achieve your dreams rather than sit there and blame others. As always, like, favorite, comment, subscribe. Thanks for watching.